if you've never seen Pat McGrew talk, or you need to know pretty much what's going on about, in, under, through, future, past, present of print, now's your opportunity. 1 second.
And just to let you know, Pat has probably forgotten more about print than most people hope to ever learn.
We're going to introduce Pat together. Let's do that, okay? What is there to say about Pat McGrew? She's been there, she's done that, she is it, she was it, she's going to be it.
One of my best friends, probably one of my mentors in this industry. She's taught me so much about print. She's taught me so much about this industry, and she knows so much about everything. And she is my assigned heckler when I present.
Today we are very fortunate in the Printiverse, and to everybody watching at home, to do a presentation. Actually, I said, I was talking to Pat on Skype one day, and I'm like, hey, Pat, you want to do a presentation? She said, sure. I said, what do you want to do it on? She's like, Pat on print. I said, you go for it. So basically, you're going to discuss everything that's going on in the world of print today. Ladies and gentlemen, Pat McGrew, M, EDP, CMP. What does CMP stand for?
Certified Marketing Professional.
Certified Marketing Professional. HP, Inkjet, high-speed Inkjet Web Press. Evangelist.
Yes.
Here she is.
It's mine this time?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. Hi there. So we wanted to do Pat on print for a couple of reasons. In the background, when I was talking to Deborah, Girls on Film was playing. And so somehow Pat on print made sense. So Pat on print. What I wanted to do today was spend a little bit of time talking about all those things you think you can't do with print that you think maybe you must do by e-delivery, the things that you think won't lend themselves to building a customer base, nurturing a customer base, or educating your customer base. So we're going to start with books, because books are a funny story. Everybody thinks that the only way people will read books right now is on an e-device. And the truth is that there are an awful lot of books that really lend themselves to the tactile feel of a book. And there are a lot of books that, frankly, you really just want sitting on your desk. And the value proposition with books at this point is probably less about high volume runs of offset and more about segmented, smaller runs that can be targeted or segmented or personalized either for specific classes or for specific target reader segments. So a case of that is a customer that we've worked with in Japan. Now, if this book, if it looks to you like I'm holding this up backwards, I'm not. This is a book of manga. It's called a Banko book. And these are done in Japan. And these books have very precise printing requirements. And for a very long time, the printers didn't think they could do these digitally because they didn't think they could get the quality of black, and they didn't think that they could get the fineness of the images that you'll see in these books. Very, very fine lines, very, very fine expressions, and at the same time, deep blocks of black. So this book is actually produced by a company called Kodansha out of Japan, and they have mastered the art of printing Banko books on inkjet. Now, it wasn't easy. It took working with the team, honestly, at HP, but it also took working with their workflow team members, with their color management team members. Yes, even in black and white, you need a color management team, because they had to be able to handle the moire patterns. So some of these images, and I'll get to one of them here, have a lot of gradation in them. And when you have, and I'm trying to get a better one so our lovely camera person can zoom in on them. But when you look at some of these, they were prone to moire patterns when they were printed digitally, and that was not acceptable to the Japanese market. So a lot of work had to be done on algorithms in color management for a black and white book. So the moral to the story here is that if you can think it, we can probably print it digitally, but it may take a little bit of work. So today, this book printed digitally on an inkjet web press, is for sale on the high street bookstores, where they are very, very popular. Because, to be honest, these are the books that people read on the train going home at night, on the train coming into work in the morning. These are the common things that people will be reading in Japan on a day-in, day-out basis. And now they can be produced digitally. And for the offset printers, this is fabulous, because there was never the volume that made offset made sense. They were printing offset because of the requirements for quality. Now they can actually print these books and make money. So it's a specialized kind of market. There are similar specialized kind of markets. You'll find them in Europe. You'll find them across Asia. You'll find them in South America. You don't find it so much in the U.S., this requirement for very specialized books, except maybe in the scientific and education markets. But even in those markets, inkjet printing can do amazing things. Well, we know a lot about books. So when it came time for the Explore International User Association to codify their body of knowledge, we had a big debate. We were discussing whether we put it on a wiki and just made it available electronically, or whether we created a book that was the true body of knowledge. And because digital inkjet can be done now and can make books affordable, this book is done on an inkjet web press with a toner, color toner cover. To be honest, it's an HP T330 that belongs to Hudson Printing in Salt Lake City, and their Indigo Web Press did the covers. But these books can now be produced by Explore at a cost that makes it affordable for the association, and it makes it possible for people to buy it. We can print these in lots of 400 or 500 or 1,000, depending on our needs. And when universities would like to personalize them, maybe for a class, we can actually work with them to personalize copies for specific universities. We can change the covers, because when you are working digitally, that becomes very easy to do. So the world of book printing has really changed. It's become a whole new world because of the ability to do short runs. Now, the fun thing is that we wanted to help promote the book. And actually, here at Graph Expo in the Standard Finishing booth, Standard Finishing partnered with us to create an excerpt of this book. It's one page of each chapter, and we actually printed it at half size, and they finish it on their bookbinding equipment so that they can show the flexibility of their equipment. So it's been one really great industry story around the Explore body of knowledge. Oh, by the way, this is for sale. edbok.org is where you can find out more about buying a copy if you'd like. So that's books, but books are not the sexy part of printing. The sexy part of printing is customer communication. It's selling your product, it's nurturing your customers, it's educating people. So I have, over the last week and a half, collected brand new print samples that are now my new favorites. And one of my favorites is weird because it's a simplex printed document. Right now, you almost never think about something printed on one side as being cool and sexy. This was printed on an inkjet web press, and it's cool and sexy. This is meant for elementary school children to learn when to cross the street and when not to cross the street. This is distributed in schools, right? So very easy, very graphically oriented. Arlene, I think this would ring a bell in your world. Yes? So the fun thing is, and I'll step back, this is the piece, right? It's printed on a 42-inch web press in inkjet, and this meets the customer's brief. Anybody who tells you you can't do high coverage color in inkjet, send them to me, because you don't get more high coverage than this. Basic covers, basic colors, right? And there's not a wiggle, there's not a band anywhere in sight. This is printed by a customer of ours called Semeta, who is based in Belgium. And they do some really, really cool work. So this is cool, but this is just a sampling of some of the things the folks at Semeta do. I'd like you to meet Bram and Nora, right? Bram and Nora. Hi, Bram. Hi, Nora, right? So if I told you that these were insurance documents, what would you say? They don't really look like insurance documents, do they? But these are the welcome kit. When you buy your Ethias insurance online in Belgium, they had a problem. People were buying the online insurance, but they were never renewing it because there was no relationship, right? You search for the cheapest insurance, and when it's up, you search for the next cheapest insurance. Ethias wasn't happy about that because it's costly to onboard a new customer. So they came up with an idea with their agency of welcoming online insurance buyers with a magazine. So the magazines are personalized with their name, and based on the kind of insurance you bought and when you bought it, there are 750,000 variations of this magazine. 750,000 versions. Wow, right? Now, here was the idea. Send them a magazine. Tell them a little bit about Ethias Insurance. Tell them a little bit about the insurance policy that they bought, because by law you have to, but also do things like introduce them to the local office manager who's in the office closest to their home, right? Let's see if we can get them to come visit the office, because if we can get them into the office, they might buy more insurance. In fact, we have evidence that they do. So they actually went out to every office around Belgium and took pictures of the office staff. So everyone in the office stood out and held a banner and took their picture, and now they can be welcoming you personally. So now Nora Vanderway is being, right, she is absolutely being welcomed by her local staff. So now she can actually take her magazine to the local office and see if these people are really there, and guess what, they are. And guess what people did? They carried the magazines in and said, are they there? Now the other thing we can do with this magazine is we can say, we can tell stories about people who've used Ethias Insurance successfully, and we can tell stories about people who bought other kinds of Ethias Insurance. So maybe they bought a car policy, and we might like to get their home policy as well. So we can tell a story about people who used Ethias Home Insurance, and it was very successful and pleasant experience. So the magazine becomes a vehicle for expanding the relationship and driving people into the local storefronts, and it worked. The response rate on this is beyond amazing, and in fact, I'd encourage you to go out to YouTube and put the words Ethias Insurance into YouTube search engine. It's ETHIAS, and you will see a whole set of videos that include all the response rates for this piece. They will tell you everything because the agency chose to share. So what we know is what the open rate of this magazine was, we know what the call rate was, and we know what the insurance response rate is. So Ethias magazine, go out to YouTube, and it's just a brilliant story. Now you might be saying, wow, that's a kind of a heavy coverage object there. And it is. It's a self-cover magazine printed on a matte stock, right? And yet customers accept this as magazine quality, which is really kind of interesting. Now, this same customer, this is also done by the folks in Belgium at Semeta. They have for a couple of years been working with a jeans retailer. Think, if you're American, think Gap, right? So they're, the jeans retailer in Belgium is called Zeb. And Zeb has had one of the most successful print engagements through direct mail of any jeans company I'm aware of, actually of any retailer that I'm aware of. They created the Zeb newspaper called Zeb Gazette, and they sent it out to the members of the loyalty program, personalized. 7 points of personalization. Boy thing, if you were a boy and you only ever bought boy things, it only told you about boy things. If you ever bought one thing for your girlfriend, there would be a few girl things in the newspaper as well. It was very smartly personalized. In Europe, the privacy laws are really quite intense, so you cannot invade someone's privacy. So the 7 points of personalization, you don't want to go any further. Well, for 2.5 years, they've run this newspaper, and it has been wildly successful. It has helped the store rebuild its loyalty base. It has helped them drive in-store sales. Whenever the Zeb Gazette newspaper drops into the mail stream, they have to put more people on in the stores because people bring the newspaper in, right? They bring it and say, I want that jean, I want that top, I want this. But they felt that maybe after 2.5 years, newspaper had run its course a bit, So this is their new piece. And this is now the Zeb magazine because, you know, you can never have too much print. So now it is still personalized. It is still in full color. It is still 7 points of personalization, same idea. In this case, Patrick is a Man of the Year, right? At various times there has been Man of the Year and Woman of the Year, Stud of the Year, Model of the Year. So Sexiest Man Alive that they do, and they do all of these in English, French, and Dutch. Right, so you get to set your language preference. So every one of these really does look different. Every one is unique. These are printed on 42-inch web press in Belgium, and they go into the mail stream, and they drive business into the store. They do this coordinated with a Facebook campaign and also YouTube and Instagram. They're using all the social media, but it all gets driven by the print. So sometimes we hear about mobile driving print, and in this case, print drives mobile. And it drives people to the store, and it drives sales. And that's what we think print should do. That is the value of print. So when you're being a very smart marketer, that works really well. Now, the same company has a lot of customers who do very, very large volume runs, very often on offset. And they started playing with this idea that perhaps you could mix and match offset and digital. So they actually worked with an organization called Kazoo to create a holiday newspaper for loyal holiday bookers. And they created it in such a way that the base offset is the inside of the newspaper, but everyone gets an individually digitally wrapped version of the newspaper that highlights their family and their family adventures. So if you have 2 kids or 4 kids or 6 kids, they know. And they can actually accommodate up to 9 kids. If you have 10 kids, they have to do it by hand. But they have templates for up to 9 kids, and they know the ages, and they can target individual content to the ages of the kids to get them more engaged. Now, the goal for Kazoo was to get holiday bookings earlier in the cycle so that they weren't coming up against the holiday season with still open bookings available. And this is exactly what did it, because now they had the opportunity to talk to these families individually, and it got the families going, oh, wait, we need to book. And they did, and they booked earlier, and the Kazoo team says this was a wildly successful campaign for them. So once again, if you go out to YouTube and you type in Kazoo, K-A-Z-O-U, you can find more information, including the response rates for this piece of print. It's why print is so important. They did a similar campaign for Jet Air, which is a charter travel company. Same thing, 7 points of personalization. These are the things that drive conversations in the family. This is what people sit down at dinner with, and they start talking about, gee, I guess maybe we should book our next trip. And this actually drives revenue to the travel company. So we've learned a lot about digital print. We've learned that when it's done well, and it does what digital does that offset does not, it gives you the opportunity to segment and personalize. When you can do that, and when you can do it not invasively, but in a friendly and synchronous kind of way, that print becomes the most powerful medium in the world. Now, I've been showing you things from Belgium, and you might be asking yourself, my gosh, does this only happen in Belgium? Well, no, not actually, but it just so happens that the team in Belgium, they work very closely with their agency, and they do an amazing job, and they give us the ability to tell the story because they share their data. Very few customers are willing to share response rates. Very few are willing to share the build process of the jobs, and the team at Symetra does. But here in the U.S., there are a number of customers who have gotten on the bandwagon and who have begun sharing with us as well. There is a group from Hudson Printing. They're based in Salt Lake City. They are, in fact, the printer of the Explorer electronic document body of knowledge. They get it. They understand it. And they've become quite expert at creating segmented magazines. So these magazines are done in very short runs. They're typically done with self-covers. This one is done on an Appleton-coated Utopia gloss. It's done on an inkjet web press, and these can be done in very short runs, very economically, and they can be targeted and segmented. So in this case, this is the Women's Law Journal. And say your Women's Lawyers Association is nationwide, but you also have regional chapters. It's possible to create this file in such a way that each regional chapter has the ability to own 4 or 5 pages that will only be seen by their chapter members. And that becomes a very efficient use of print and a really great way to make sure they see the big association message, but still have the chance to talk to their local chapters and their local regions on a more personal level. Sometimes you need to be able to do education, and the guys at Hudson have come up with a great solution for that as well. And this is fun. This is actually, I shouldn't laugh. This is the education program for DWI, but this one happens to be in Spanish. And I'm not saying that only people who speak Spanish need this education, but it gave Hudson the ability to do it in English, in Spanish, and any other language that the New Mexico Department of Transportation asked. And in fact, they can do short runs in specific languages. All they need is the file. So it gives the Department of Transportation in New Mexico the freedom to have the right languages in the right locations around the state. Because it's not all Spanish, it's not all English, there are a number of other languages spoken in New Mexico. So it gives them that option. And when we start talking about short run web press inkjet, it gives you a lot of options. Now it doesn't have to look like that. It can look as really cool like this. This is actually the Rag Mag, which is another one that they do. And this one is very local to Cape Cod, right? So it's a regional, localized magazine that has a lot of localized content in it. Very short run, but very high quality. You could put this on any newsstand anywhere in the world and people would pick it up and look at it because the quality is that good. And that's what print is all about. Print is used for a lot of things. And right now, every once in a while I go on runs where I look for favorite pieces. And right now, the folks at Anro have this really great piece that they've created that is actually quick tips for mailing. Right? We're all in the print business. We all mail a lot of things. This is really cool because it's quick tips for mailing. It's personalized, it's segmented, it's targeted, and it shows off their press. It's a self-promotion piece. Every printer, no matter where you are, should be doing self-promotion print pieces and showing your customers what you can do. If you are not doing that right now, you're missing a big opportunity. And they've done this this is actually an iPad mailer. I thought this was kind of cool. Our folks at Documation, another company we like a lot, they worked with the team at Mondi. I know Daniel was here earlier today. They worked with the team at Mondi to help them create their own promotional literature. But this is my favorite self-promotional piece for a printer anywhere on earth. This thing is just cool. Now, this started out as a piece that was mostly white and colors. I actually provided the original files to them, and they sent their designer to town on it. This was printed on an inkjet web press and then finished. And this is their self-promotion piece for Documation. Then finished. And this is their self-promotion piece for Documation. Digital toner, like an Indigo or many of the others that are here on the floor at Graph Expo, you can get really great pieces that do exactly what you need them to do. So that's today's story, Pat on Print. Think of it as show and tell. If you have any questions at all for Pat on Print, please let Deborah know. Please let Print Media Center know. We are always happy to answer those questions. I'm also at Pat McGrew on Twitter, and I will always answer questions. So, Deborah, you had a question.
Yes, I did.
May I bring you the microphone? I can hear you. I can repeat it.
You mentioned the 7 points of personalization.
7 points of personalization.
In Europe. Because inkjet is so customizable, what is the position, just in general, because we're talking Pat on Print,
Yeah.
about the current situation with the creep factor of I have a writer, Chloe, who just wrote an article in my newsletter about the creep factor, and I know that you read it. I wonder if you can comment about it.
So the wonderful Chloe Mahendra Fuji recently wrote a blog for Print Media Center talking about the creep factor in privacy, and it is a real fact that agencies can often go overboard using customer data and invading personal space with the personalization that they do. The team that we work with at Symetra is really quite, they're very dedicated to this idea that they never want to invade someone's privacy. And I think they've built a set of rules that I really like to live by. Be free. If your customer is opted in, their name, fine. The town they live in, if that's relevant to the conversation, and for newspaper editions, use that. Gender, fair game. It's pretty easy to identify gender. Age bracket, child, teen, mid, me, all these things. Those are not invasively, but fair game. But don't go a whole lot beyond that. If you're a retailer and you know buying patterns, use them very delicately. It shouldn't be that you tell me that I just bought this white jacket and wouldn't I like a white pair of pants to go with it. You might instead make me an offer that is just compatible with any other kind of clothing that might go along with having bought a jacket. So don't offer me another jacket, but offer me accessories. But don't say, we know you bought a jacket, so wouldn't you like to buy this as well? Because that's where the invasion starts. So trying to avoid the creep factor is basically a reasonability test. Don't go too deeply into somebody's life. You shouldn't know how many teeth they have, right? And certain retailers shouldn't even know whether you have kids or not. I mean, it depends on the level of your relationship, and you really do have to be careful. So I can pass this to Sandy. Hey, Frankie. Minimum runs in Inkjet Web are really funny because it will depend on the printer that you're working with. Some printers with the Inkjet Web, because they can gang jobs together, are very happy to do very small runs because they gang a lot of small runs that are sort of similarly configured together. And run them and finish them, and it's not an issue, while other printers are not so happy to do that because of how their finishing lines are configured or because of how their overall workflow is configured. So it's possible you just have to shop for the right printer and they can help you out. I noticed that Paul Gardner walked in here just a few moments ago, who helped Explore International with this. And we only ordered 400 copies of this book to start. So you can understand this was not the biggest print run he did that day, right? And yet, because of how his workflow is set up and because of how he's configured, he was in a position to say yes to us as an association and make this work for us. And it made all the difference in the world. If we'd gone to any offset press, we'd have never been able to do this. And quite honestly, if we'd gone to a cut sheet printer to doing it on toner, we'd have never been able to afford it. So this is what made it all work for us. Yeah, makes a big difference. I can hand you this and use this, yeah? If I can get it off here. There we go. There, you have that.
Okay.
Hey, Sandy.
All right. So, as you know, I was working on social. Hey, baby.
Yeah. Whoops. Careful. There's a ridge in the carpet.
There's a ridge there.
You missed almost a great fall.
Yeah. So I was social mediaing while you were talking. So if I'm asking something covered, I apologize.
No problem.
A lot of these are designed to go into the mail stream.
Many of them are.
What are we talking about in terms of durability?
This is a really good question. So this is actually a piece that is very clear. It's a self-envelope. This is all inkjet. So this is one piece of paper that gets chopped, wrapped around itself basically, and turned into a self-mailer. This was done for Walden University, and they actually say that this was this piece, the series of pieces that they did, and there's a bunch of them down here. I have a bunch on my wall back in the booth too. Were single-handedly responsible for driving response to their online degree program. Now, this is a piece that it's not coated, it's not varnished. It is actually done on a nice quality paper, but it's not a coated stock at all. and it gets through the mail stream, and it gets through the mail stream. The IMDb, no problem reading it. When they do tests to mail them back to themselves, they come back unmolested, which is really important. So we're not having issues, maybe, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you might have seen scraping and things, right? We all saw that, and we don't see that any longer. Everyone in the inkjet business, and every vendor you will talk to can tell you a durability story, because the inks have really improved quite a bit especially over the last 5 years, and honestly, the substrates have as well. So it is down to the designer and the print buyer to work together to make sure that the right paper is specified, and it's down to understanding what the properties of the inkjet that your vendor is going to use will have. But we don't find durability. This piece has been through the mail stream. These pieces can go through the mail stream. These newspapers are normally polybagged. So something like this, in Europe, you're not allowed to wafer tab it. So it has to go into a poly bag. But I would not even worry about putting this through the mail stream here in the U.S., even with the USPS machines, eating things as they do.
Okay, next question. So we've talked about coated stocks, options for paper. What are the possibilities for coatings, and do the coatings have to be specifically formulated for inkjet?
So that's a really great question, and the answer keeps changing. And it used to be that we would say that if you were going to be printing with inkjet, that you really should be working with a vendor to specifically coat with something prepared for inkjet. And in fact, our friends at Epic Coatings have coated this. This was done by Transcon in Canada. And this one was designed to go in the mail stream, and they did post-coat it for durability. They weren't as confident of the Canadian Post Office, I think, perhaps, being able to get it through. But the truth is that the post-coating, it makes the print really pop, right, and it looks good and makes it very durable. But a number of our customers taught us over the last few years that we were wrong and they were right. So many of our customers come to inkjet from offset, and they already have these vast arrays of coating options for their offset business. So very often, without telling us, they run a job and they stick it through their varnishing and their offset post-coating, and it looks absolutely brilliant. So a few years back when I first came to HP, we had a customer who was doing that for every single job, and we didn't know that that's what they were doing. We got a hold of some pieces and went, oh my God, that's brilliant. So we actually have quite a few customers today who simply use offset coating, and there's no issues. It doesn't rub off, it doesn't transfer, it doesn't flake, which I think were all the things we were worried about. So I think as long as you're dealing with a reasonable quality paper and a reasonable vendor who's got good quality ink, I don't think that any of the standard post-coating is really anything to fear, and a lot of our customers have learned to do it for looks as well as for durability. Now, we also have people who pre-coat, right? This is the new thing in inkjet, is to put a primer down ahead of the printing in order to, again, give you more pop off the substrate or more durability to be able to print on much, much lighter weight stocks than normal, and we're seeing more and more of that. And I think we will over the next few years, that everything you know about offset will also appear in inkjet land. It's inevitable.
Any other questions? I can go on asking.
We good? Yay! Thank you so much. So out there in live stream land, we've had a blast today at Graph Expo. Come back tomorrow. I'm the inkjet evangelist. I'm the inkjet evangelist. Evangelist. You're an evangelist. You can be the inkjet evangelist. I like that.